the afternoon of the next day, and I got a care package from Chuck, some 3-inch sleeving, and hopefully it'll be enough. It's a 16-foot section, and we'll see if what happens. I've never used this before, so it'll be an experience for me as well as for showing you. But let me turn down here. I think we left off with me wrapping, doing a tight wrap on the on our little fittings here. And let me figure out how to get this off, because there's some of these rubber bands and stuff that need to be cut, and we'll come back. But it was wrapped tight to squeeze out any of the resin, but mainly to make it conform tightly to the tube as it cured. I was having a fun time trying to guess what was supposed to be coming off here. And there we've got our sealed unit, and all the epoxy got squeezed out. I'll have to sand this down a little bit, and here's the shorter one. Both of these will go down on the bigger part of the mast on the bottom end. There we have the 4 pieces sandwiched in. There's a little bit, I may or may not wet this out underneath. It's already got enough epoxy in there. But this is the bottom one. These 2 will go down somewhat like this. This will be for the gooseneck track, and then this one will be for a cleat for the luff line. It goes around the mast to hold the luff cord on. And then this one is for the R11 or RL318 for lifting the main part of the sail through the throat, and then this one will be up at the very top. And you can see I've already cleaned up the edges on the edges. And that one will be for the topping. Let me slide over here for a second and show you something else. Okay, this is the one for the top. I don't know if you cut, well, lifting the end of the jib pole up. And you can see it by having it strapped around there. It's quite form-fitting. And this will go right here at that height. And I need to put some kind of center line on the mast here. I've got some marks that I've laid out with a string, but I need to do something permanent just to be sure about myself. Let me clean up those other ones, and then we'll go down to the other end and I'll show you how those other ones fit. I guess I could show you how I'm trimming off the ends here, just using my scissors to cut them off. And then I'll use some sandpaper to clean up a little more. I was kind of intrigued by where the rubber bands were. Kind of see the little hump right in here. It really, I didn't realize that I had as much epoxy in there, but that rubber band really pushed out the epoxy, so this is epoxy rich. And it probably shouldn't be, but it's underneath, so I won't know. I'll just have to be careful when I'm doing the final sleeve wet out. Well, I took them outside and sanded them down, and you can see where I got my markings here. This is the center line part, so I can center line that up here. And then we got the next one down, and then right there, and then down at the end I've got those 2. So all I'm waiting for now is to Monday to come around and go down and get some 2-inch tape. We can start putting this thing to bed. Well, it's another new day. As you can see, it's a little cooler. Our heat wave is gone, and we're back to normal April weather, marine air overcast. I wanted to mix up just a little bit of epoxy to wet out these spots that were against the pipe that didn't get wicked in. And I also did something else too. I have my center line string here, around here, and then pull taunt down at the other end. And I put some masking tape down on top of the shipping tape. Now I know when I wet this out, I want to set this down on top of it and line up the metal that I can see through on top of my. I've already got some markings here. I need to move the string before I do it, but then I'll set that in there and just leave it, because I'm pretty sure that when the tarp sleeve slips off, I'll be able to pull it out from the inside, and whatever little epoxy is attached to this masking tape will rip off. But I want something there to be sure that everything is in alignment from top to bottom for the two RL 318 holders, and then for the track for the mast, for the gooseneck. So, and I got something else I'm going to test out too. So let me get these guys done, and then we'll go to the test. I'm going to do a little test number here. I'm going to wet this out. This part here is just straight glass. This one is half glass and half window screening rolled. One was inside the other, and I rolled it over. So I'm going to go ahead and, I mean, I see a lot of stuff, and Chuck's told me, you know, he had a little video where he's wrapping his, he put that sleeving around a wooden mast, and then wet it out and put on that sleeving, and then cramped it down and then squeezed it out with the shipping tape. Then you had to go back, and I kind of don't like that look to it. I would much rather have a dry look, like what I had on this tube right here. This was uncompressed. I don't know, maybe I could have gotten some of the epoxy out of it and made it a little bit lighter, but we'll do the other one now. This one doesn't have any window screening in it. Use that. Yeah, I really think that this is the way to go to drive the epoxy in and compress everything, and then wipe up the excess and keep doing it. Yeah, I'm getting quite a bit off, but I don't want to get too much out because I have that test I was alluding to. Okay, on this side, I got some nylon here, some nylon cloth. This was for a sail that I made for a Grumman canoe, probably in the excess leftover material that I made in like 1972. So I'm going to use it as a 4-man's version. Well, on this test anyway. It may not come off. It may be a permanent piece I throw away. But you never know until you test your hypothesis and see what we get from the nylon. Actually, that worked. I'm surprised. That worked. I'm going to get this out twist it around for you guys. That actually worked, even though there's, I don't know if that's a thread left behind on the edge or just overlap of epoxy. But yeah, that compressed it down pretty flat. Oh, get down here where you can see it. Pretty flat, as opposed to the well, it was like the starfish and the clam. The clam didn't want to open, and the starfish wasn't going to give up, and so you can guess which one's which. So I got it off finally. Took a little bit of spraying with some silicone down on the end once I got it, and then once I got most of it on, then I don't know, it was wicking or whatever, but I'm glad I sprayed the aluminum mast with silicone before I wrapped it with that Costco tarp. So hopefully that will make it slide easy. And the tarp should not absorb any of the silicone. But the nylon, you know, this is just some basically nylon cloth that I bought. These 72. I don't know if there's any coating or not. You can see here where it got some of the epoxy is absorbed into it. It feels stiff, but it's flexible. I think I could reuse it again on the other side. So I think what I'm doing is fine, and I don't know if I'm going to wrap it with the nylon. Maybe a second mast if I do this again, or a boom. I might wrap it with the nylon. I've got plenty of cloth. It gives me a really nice smooth finish. But I don't mind the rough finish because, like when you do a bottom of a boat, you don't really, well, unless you're a vacuum bagger, you know, it's basically you put it out and you wet it out and you try to get it to stick to the plywood as flat as you can, but you have to come back with at least 2 or 3 weave fill coats. I find now that I've been mixing, I got down System 3, I got some silica powder. You mix in with the weave fills and it thickens it up. You can still spread it with your putty knife. And somebody was asking me comment here on my putty knives. I mean, I pretty much use this for everything now other than a toothbrush, and it's metal and it's flexible. And you can see here I need to clean it off. Normally all I worry about is sanding down the very edge. So as I'm scraping along while I'm wetting out cloth on a hull, I don't have any little nits in there that are going to grab the cloth. And I've rounded up the edges over too. I don't know if you can see that or there or not. But when I get ready to do this, I'm going to take and I got some old sandpaper. I'm going to sand it down now. Maybe I should do it now, and I'll come back and show you what I got after I clean it. But if after you're using epoxy, I usually just wipe everything down. Sometimes this stuff will chip off, but you can take vinegar, set it in vinegar, but sometimes the vinegar will eat away at the metal too. So let me clean this up and we'll come back and show you what I got. I'm going to go down, I was going to go down today to get the tape, so I don't know if I'm going to have to wait until next Monday or not, so it may be a delay in continuation of this.